On today's show, we're still waiting for the real moves of the Cavs offseason to get here, but an offseason kind of is coming on. Spencer Davies and I are going to talk about what we thought of what we've seen so far from the Cavs, a timeline potentially on Jonathan Kuminga or Peyton Watson, and what we saw at the Cleveland Sirens as their name was unveiled on Tuesday. That's all straight ahead on this edition of Locked on Cavs.
You are Locked on Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham. You can find me over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, where I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you can find Spencer Davies, the guest on today's show, over at ClutchPoints, where he covers the Cleveland Cavaliers. And thank you for making this edition of Locked on Cavs your very first or maybe even second listen of the day. If you're doing that, please make sure you toss us a subscribe wherever you might be listening to this show. And Spencer, the last time you and I talked on the podcast, at least, we've talked in person and texted since then, but the last time that we talked on the podcast, it was hot outside. We were sitting on a bench outside of the Thomas and Mack Center at UNLV. You then walked the wrong way to try and find your Uber, and I don't know how long it took you to find it, but you eventually did find it at some point. And then LeBron James picked the Philadelphia 76ers a week after that, and we've seen the Cavs sign Mario Hezonja to this weird non-guaranteed deal with a trigger date in the middle of November. The Cavs have been connected to Peyton Watson and Jonathan Kuminga. And I just want to throw out a broad question to start off this discussion. How would you describe what the Cavs offseason has been like so far?
Quiet. I feel like that's the easy answer, right? Like, they haven't done much. They re-signed Thomas Bryant to a one-year deal. They got the extension with Donovan Mitchell, by the way. Congratulations to Mr. Mitchell and Coco Jones for their marriage over the weekend. That
yes.
Awesome.
Congratulations to them.
But other than that, other than those two moves, and as you just said, Mario Hezonja signing that one-year non-guaranteed deal, possibility that he could not be here after November 15th in case that things don't work out, like, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement or a whole lot of action. And it seems like they're really banking on internal growth. A lot of the young guys, a lot of this core that has only spent 2.5, 3 months together to figure this thing out going forward. But as you said, been hearing some noise around Peyton Watson from Denver, been hearing some noise around Jonathan Kuminga, who is looking for a payday, but also a heavy role, so to speak. So it's not easy for those two to figure out how to get them here or to get one here. So I feel like that's why it's been so kind of quiet, as I said before.
So I mean, you cannot disagree with that because the Cavs have added two players that weren't on the roster last season. One of them Hezonja, the other one Malik Thomas, who they picked number 34 overall in the draft this past June. So you can't disagree with the word quiet. I am a little, I guess, to answer my own question, I'm a little surprised at how this offseason has gone, because I did think that going into this summer, after what happened in the postseason where the Cavs get to this conference finals and, you know, it doesn't necessarily ever look great along the way. They need 7 games to beat the Raptors in the first round, which they should not have needed. They needed 7 games to beat the Detroit Pistons in the second round, which you could make a case like, okay, that's beating a 60-win team. No matter how many games it takes, like, that's never a bad thing. It's hard for me to say, yeah, they should have wrapped that up earlier. I do think if they would have beat the Raptors earlier, they probably would have beaten the Pistons earlier as well. But then it gets swept in the fashion they did against the New York Knicks. I thought that we would, I don't know if urgency is the right word, because I think LeBron slowed a lot of this down. But I think the thing that surprises me, and I'm curious for your take on this, I think the thing that surprises me the most is that after the dust settled with LeBron, we didn't see a flurry of moves. We didn't see the Cavs kind of, okay, have these things lined up in case LeBron picked elsewhere, which obviously he did. Like, I thought that they had a couple of different pathways. One of them obviously included LeBron. That pathway has been shut off. I thought that we would see them get to those other pathways, which, like, still exist. I just thought that we'd get there quicker. Like, I did not think that we would be sitting here on August 4th, one with James Harden still a free agent, which is not a thing where, oh, could James Harden leave the Cavs? No, James Harden is waiting for the Cavs to figure out everything else. But I thought that a lot of those other things would have been figured out by now.
That's a fair point. And I think James Harden also deserves a lot of credit for waiting this out and giving the Cavs the flexibility as they're under these aprons at the moment. So they have a little bit more flexibility. It's a little bit more difficult in terms of the money if he were to sign right now, and the taxpayer mid-level exception versus the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, what you're able to do in terms of flexibility trade-wise. So that is all team first stuff that James deserves a lot of credit for. But in terms of the other moves, like I think it being this late in the offseason is definitely a surprise to me as well, just because of what's happened around them. You look at all the moves that have happened starting with Miami going and getting Giannis and Bobby Portis. You look at, I know this is still in flow and in flux, I should say, with Toronto, but going out and getting Kawhi Leonard over there, right? Like Philly bolstering. Right, Philly bolstering,
Right.
Atlanta looking better, Charlotte making over their team. Like there's been a ton of movement in the Eastern Conference in particular, which makes this a little bit more like, I'm surprised that you didn't have like at least one other thing in your arsenal to try and keep up, so to speak.
Well, it's not that they don't have it; it's that they haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah,
like I just think that. And I get it. The LeBron stuff took longer than anybody anticipated. Like I think that teams across the league thought, he's going to drag this into Summer League, which started on July 9th. And then we get word on July 24th. Like that's, again, in the big scheme of things, July 9th to July 24th is 2 weeks and a day. It's not that long in real world time, but in the midst of the NBA offseason, that's an eternity. That might as well be a year. Like it took forever for that to happen. So I do understand to some extent, like, okay, this took forever. Like that's why I thought it would have been unfair to say there wasn't some sense of urgency prior to LeBron, because you had to wait on LeBron. Like you didn't have a choice there. And LeBron very clearly was not going to be rushed. It's just, I thought that afterwards we wouldn't be waiting at this point almost another 2 weeks, because it'll be 2 weeks on Friday. Like I just did not think this would be the case.
Yeah, and not even just Cleveland, too. There's still plenty of pieces and parts that are moving around the league, too. And it just seems like the lull that we've had since the LeBron announcement has been longer than anticipated. So I'm not sure how this is working. Maybe people are on vacation. Maybe this is that time of year where they're decompressing and then getting ready to start training camp in a month and a half. And that's why, but I'm with you. Usually this stuff is figured out by this time of year at least. So I'm interested. We do know that, the Donovan Mitchell move all those years back was made in September. So that stuff is real. That happens. Things happen before training camp. You look at Karl Anthony Towns, that huge blockbuster move with Julius Randle. I think that happened too, like in September-ish or late August.
October. That was October.
Yeah, exactly. So there are late off-season things that happen, but I feel like there's also a patience factor with this too, because there's fans around here that are getting a little antsy and want to see something happen, and knowing what they're up against in this conference makes them a little bit more queasy in a way.
And I'm glad you brought up some of the late off-season moves, because I'm actually planning on talking about this on tomorrow's show, like names that maybe I could see that happening for, because you brought up Donovan, and I went back to that trade being like not the first big one to see late in an offseason, because that was not unheard of at the time, but just like in this era. So Donovan got traded to the Cavs September 1st of 2022, prior to the 2023-24 season. That was when Drew Holiday got traded to the Boston Celtics and Damian Lillard was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. One of those moves worked marvelously. The Celtics won the title that year. The Damian Lillard move didn't exactly work so much for the Milwaukee Bucks, or for Damian Lillard for that matter. And then 2 years ago, prior to the 24-25 season, it was on October 2nd, Karl Anthony Towns was traded. That was the eve of training camp, was traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks. Now, the Knicks were good in Towns' first year, and then we know what they turned into in his second year. This past offseason, we didn't see anything of consequence at that time of the calendar, but like I do think it is a good reminder that those things are possible, that those things can still happen. And just because it is August 4th, and it feels like there's a lot of outstanding business with the Cavs still, where they still they only have 13 guys under contract right now. They legally have to make moves still. Like they cannot be done with their offseason. But because of how weird this summer has been, it's just like at some point something has to give.
Yeah, there's no summer deadline. Like the reason that the trade deadline always gets heated up is because there's things that you have to do by a certain date. This is like you're on your own time. And it depends on the player you're negotiating with. It depends on the teams you're negotiating with. So there is no rush. And I feel like a lot of these teams that try to make these deals are trying to feel out what the best offers are for them too. And that's why the Jonathan Kuminga thing's taken forever, because we've heard him connected to the Lakers. We've heard him connected to Cleveland. I think Minnesota was another team that he was connected to. So, maybe in terms of a sign and trade, they're fielding offers and trying to figure out what makes sense for their team in particular. And then you also have to look at the timeline of the player too. The player might be weighing their options. And I think that's what's going on with JK. I think with Peyton Watson, it's a little bit more difficult in Denver because the Nuggets are the only team that are in the second apron. So they are limited in what they can do. They can't take money back. They are in the position that the Cavs were in last season, which makes it a whole lot more difficult to make a transaction happen. So I feel like there's a number of factors that go into that whole thing. But yeah, there's no deadline in the offseason. So it's not like you have to get things done by a certain point.
There is no deadline, but as you mentioned, there are timelines. I want to talk about those with Jonathan Kuminga, Peyton Watson, and maybe some other moves that could take place too next right here on Locked on Cavs. But first, today's episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. Betterhelp has been a widely used online therapy platform, and today the focus is on why so many people continue to choose it. If you're curious, you can actually see what people are saying by visiting betterhelp.com/reviews, where real customer reviews are updated every single day. BetterHelp has an average live therapy session rating of 4.9 out of 5 based on more than 1.7 million client session reviews. That is a lot of reviews. And hearing directly from people who have used the service helps paint a clearer picture of why so many people continue to recommend it. More than 6 million people globally have used BetterHelp. To get started, just answer a few questions. You get matched with a therapist based on your needs. And if the fit isn't right, you can switch therapists at any time. I think that's one of the great parts, because finding the therapist that works for you is really, really important. That is a very vital part of therapy. And with BetterHelp being able to switch therapists at any time, that is a great part of it. Their therapists have at least 3 years and 1,000 hours of hands-on experience, along with the required education, training, and certification. So you know that you're getting exactly what you need from BetterHelp. So see the reviews, see what stands out, and see if BetterHelp is right for you. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That is LOCKEDON NBA today. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. One more time, betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. Thank you again for making this edition of Locked on Cavs your very first listen of the day, or your first watch on YouTube. If you're watching, thumbs up button, notification bell, click them both for me, please. Helps the show a ton. It goes a long way. Very much appreciated. And we've kind of talked around the Peyton Watson, Jonathan Kuminga stuff a little bit in that first segment, Spencer. But obviously the Cavs have interest in both. Like, I do not think it is some state secret that there's varying levels of interest in these two guys. I'm curious how much longer this holds up. Like, I am curious how much longer this goes on. And I do wonder if we're getting close to a point where there's going to be some pressure put on the Cavs to make a decision or make something happen. And as I say that, I kind of look more towards the Kuminga side of things, because Watson is not on. Watson can kind of be framed as being on Denver's timeline because he's a restricted free agent, where Kuminga is an unrestricted free agent. He could sign tomorrow for the minimum. Now that's not going to happen, but he could sign somewhere tomorrow for the minimum, wherever he wanted. Like that, there's nothing holding him up. And I do think that, like, I think Kuminga makes sense in Cleveland. I've come around on this a little bit more from when the offseason got here. And I think that if he didn't want to be in Cleveland, or at least partially want to be in Cleveland, and he does have a previous relationship with Kenny Atkinson from their time in Golden State, I think that we would have probably heard Cleveland not ruled out, but I think we would have heard more about Kuminga going elsewhere. So I'm just like, I think that we're going to start to get some answers on Jonathan Kuminga coming up shortly here.
Yeah, and he's very familiar with the area too, not only with Kenny, but I mean, he works out up here in the summers. And, his trainer, Ant Wells, is around here all the time. When they come in, his agent at Veris, Aaron Turner, is a Cleveland native as well. So It seems like the perfect fit in terms of just lifestyle and being around and knowing the area. I've also come around on the fit a little bit more if he were to come off the bench. That's my number one thing with Kuminga, because I know that Jonathan Kuminga has been waiting for the opportunity to have isolation possessions and places where he can have the ball in his hands and basically go to work and get a bucket. That's his thing. He likes to get to spots. A lot of guys his size and with his skill set don't really get that opportunity in the league because they're role players and they're stand in the corner, go get rebounds, go play defense. I think JK could really thrive with the Cavs if he came off the bench and became your top option off the bench, to be completely honest. And it doesn't always have to be isolation possessions, but you need someone to be that 9-1-1 guy for you. You need someone that can get to spots, that can create on their own. I think JK's ball handling has got a lot better over the course of his career. I think his three-point shot is still a work in progress and can be here or there, but he is extremely powerful. He is athletic as heck, and he can really just go through guys. And that's what makes Jonathan Kuminga as dangerous as he can be. And he's still in his early 20s. So you have that youth factor, you have the power, you have the athleticism, something the Cavs do not have, or have very little of, other than Naquan Tomlin. I really can't think of other people that are athletic at that size.
Donovan.
Well, yeah.
I mean, at that size, no. Donovan is a freak athlete. For a guy his size, Donovan is, I think, pound for pound, Donovan is the best athlete on this team by a wide margin.
I like that. I think Naquan's up there too, to be honest, just in terms of overall athleticism. But I hear what you're saying with Don. But anyway, besides the point, like, I think JK could really be a super sub. And if he was down with that and he could bet on himself for that $15 million or whatever they would pay him on a 1 year, I think that they'd be open to that. But it just depends on what his options are, because the Lakers, they might promise him a starting spot. Minnesota might promise him a bigger role than that. But at the end of the day, it's about what Jonathan Kuminga wants. And I think that's what's been the holdup. It's because he's just going through all of these options in his head. And, other teams that I don't think have been mentioned that I feel speculatively would be a good fit for him are these, these more rugged teams. I think he'd be a great fit in Detroit. I think JB would love to get his hands on Jonathan Kuminga. It's just a totally JB Bickerstaff type of player. I think Miami makes a ton of sense. I know that they don't have too much shooting.
They don't have the money. They don't have the money to make it happen, I don't think.
Well, yeah, but I'm just like spitballing. Orlando, right? Like, those are the teams I think would make sense for him in like starting spots and potential, fit. But the Cavs certainly, I think, with a second unit and him running his own ship, I think he could definitely do some damage.
So I don't know that starting matters as much to me. Like,
yeah,
I think if he's in the starting lineup, it might to him. But like, even if he's in the starting lineup, I think there's a way to navigate it and build a rotation so that he's not like, obviously, if you're a starter, you're not a super sub, but he can be the guy on second units. Like, you can have that even if you're in the starting lineup. It's basically Jonathan Kuminga starts, plays the first 4 or 5 minutes, is the first guy to go to the bench, and then comes back at the start of the second quarter and leads the second unit then, which is something that the Cavs really, really missed a lot last year. Like, they missed not having Ty Jerome in that role. And obviously Kuminga and Ty Jerome are wildly different basketball players. But in terms of like what you're missing, or I get the stats, even though I don't think Kuminga is going to approach who Ty was as a 3-point shooter with the Cavs, but you're missing that production. You're missing the points off the bench. You're missing the force that the Cavs were able to have when they had a bench that was incredible because they had so many guys. And that was, that would look a little bit different because that bench was just loaded with 3-point shooting and they could run teams off the floor because of that. And that's not something that Kuminga is necessarily going to aid them in or help them with. But like it is to me, it's something that makes sense. And I think that we're going to start to hear more about Kuminga, whether it's in Cleveland, whether it's somewhere else. I think this is a big week as far as that goes. Like, I do not think that this is something that's going to continue to drag on and on and on. And as for Peyton Watson, I don't know when we're going to get a resolution on that. And I don't know how involved the Cavs are. I do think that there is interest. I have heard James Harden is very interested in having Peyton Watson as a teammate in Cleveland. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know what that would look like. And I don't know what a timeline there looks like. And I think all of that, because if you're the Cavs, you have to land one of these guys. I feel very strongly about saying you need to find a way to land either Jonathan Kuminga or Peyton Watson. I've thrown out on the podcast, I think it'd be ideal if they land both of them, but you have to land one of them. And I don't know if the Cavs can continue to wait for Peyton Watson and potentially miss out on Jonathan Kuminga.
I have heard that Watson is their option A in that situation if it did come down to the two. But yeah, if you ended up with both, that'd be terrific because then you would have two guys that you don't have that player archetype at all in Cleveland.
Well, you go your wing rotation currently is Jalen Tyson and Max Strus, and Max is a good player, but he's an undersized wing and not like on par with the best athletes at that spot in the league. And then you get to Naquan Tomlin, where if that wing rotation is instead is the combination of Kuminga, Jalen Tyson, and Peyton Watson, you feel much different about it.
You do, no doubt. And the thing with Peyton Watson for me, man, it's just the defense definitely sticks out more than JK. I feel like Peyton knows how to defend individually. I think he is more adept to being a role-ish player than Kuminga would be. So that's where I think the differences are. I think also with Peyton, you have a little bit more of an empty canvas, so to speak, because he's still a little younger in his career than JK is. And Peyton, I don't know if I quite believe in the 3-point shot the way it has developed, but you know that the corners are there for him. And the corners are exactly what Dean Wade was doing, right? Like, I feel like that's a lot better to, put out on the floor than the alternative, which, like you said, if you have, Max out there, Sam Merrill sometimes playing the 3. I do believe a ton in Jalen Tyson. I think that this can really be a huge, huge year for him. If last year wasn't a breakout year, then I think a breakout year could come this year for Jalen Tyson. But it'd be nice to not put all of that on his shoulders.
Well, I mean, even if Jalen Tyson is awesome, you need more than one wing. Like, if Jalen Tyson is twice the player he was last year, which, by the way, would be an all-star, if he's twice that guy, like, you're still short in that area. You still need another wing because you can't ask that 82 times a year and then also every night in the playoffs. Like, that's just not a fair or realistic thing. I mean, if the Cavs had, instead of Jalen Tyson, if they had LeBron, they would still be a wing short. Like, it's a numbers game at a certain point. I want to wrap this part with this. What's your gut tell you as far as how these situations play out? Like, what do you think happens? And I'm not going to put a date on it because I would have said by like July 30th, what's this look like? And here we are on August 4th as we record this. So I guess by media day at the end of September, where do you think these guys are? And what do you think the Cavs end up doing?
I actually don't think they end up with Kuminga. I think Kuminga goes elsewhere. Just gut feeling. The Peyton Watson thing is intriguing to me, but the way that has to happen is they have to offload salary too. That's the other thing. Like, Dennis Schroeder going somewhere and Max Strus going somewhere to make room because Peyton's going to want a bag. But the thing about getting a bag for Peyton is that Peyton would be with you long term. And that would be the better situation, I think, than just getting a prove-it deal with Kuminga if he weren't to sign multiple years. That's why I think option A for Peyton Watson with this team, I don't know if they get it done. I'm kind of leaning that way, though. I think that they actually do
Really?
end up with Peyton. Yeah.
Wow. That is, I think they end up with Kuminga. I think that I think that there's going to be pressure put on them. I think they end up with Kuminga because, like I said, I just do not think that they can come away empty-handed from this. Now, that's the extent of our Cavs conversation, Spencer, because on Tuesday morning, you and I were both inside Rocket Arena for a rare visit in the month of August, and that's because we had a brand unveiling. Cleveland Sirens going to be starting play in 2028. I want to talk about what we saw, just overall takeaways next right here on Locked on Cavs.
The problem of finding clothes that you can live in all day, be comfortable, and do whatever you need to do, whether it's just chilling, going to meetings, playing golf, being on the move, that problem has been solved by Cozy Earth. The everyday polo is the answer. It's lightweight, built to move with you, just easy to wear everywhere. I've got it on right now, and it's fabulous. Plus, the Cozy Earth Essential Socks, they're exactly what the name suggests. Soft, supportive, comfortable enough that you stop thinking about them halfway through the day. Plus, Cozy Earth backs everything with a 10-year warranty and hassle-free returns. So if something isn't quite right, you're covered. That makes trying them for yourself an easy decision. I've got the Cozy Earth Everyday Polo in blue and in black. Check them out at CozyEarth.com. Use the code LOCKEDON for 20% off. That's right, Locked On for an exclusive 20% off. And if you see a post-purchase survey, please mention you heard about it right here, CozyEarth.com.
More with Spencer Davies in just a second. So, Spencer, you and I on Tuesday morning, we're inside Rocket Arena. Like I said, a rare visit in the month of August to the building the Cleveland Cavaliers play in, and it is the future home, too, of the now newly named Cleveland Sirens to start play in the WNBA in 2028. Really cool presentation. Really cool to get to see that brand unveiled. What'd you take away from our Tuesday morning inside that building?
Man, everyone was excited. That place was loud. No lie, man. They had a bunch of their partners there, but they had a bunch of fans there too. And just the cheers that were in there. I thought that the balloons and the bubbles were cool. I love me some dark blue, navy blue, accompanied by that baby blue. I love that color scheme, to be honest. It was cool. It was a sweet experience. I thought the lighting when you went in there, the energy of the building, it was different. It was cool. And I think the fact that they're separating themselves brand-wise from the Cavs and from the Charge, it really spoke out. I think that they're a little bit more close to the Monsters than they are the Cavs and the Charge because, you know, the whole thing.
Certainly
in
the
water,
color scheme.
The color scheme and also the water. Them talking about Lake Erie being one of the best parts about this city. You know, I feel like it was a good unveiling. I thought that the energy in the room was awesome. It was great to see everybody that we haven't seen in a few months too. That was awesome. Just catching up with some Cavs PR and seeing, you know, Serena Winters doing the presentation, obviously Kobe Altman and Nick Barlage up there on the stage. We talked to Grant Gilbert, and of course we met Allison Howard, and she was awesome. So I thought it was a really cool presentation and you know, a few hours that they were able to put that on.
Were you surprised they didn't go with the Cleveland Rockers?
No, because usually it's pretty forward moving with Rock Entertainment. I feel like they don't really rely on past stuff. They tend to be more progressive and forward thinking. And it was cool that the Rockers were there. And the fact that they supported all of this, they had, you know, 8 Rockers in the building. Rusha Brown, actually, cool, good friend of mine. I did a show with her on Basketball News all those years ago. So it was cool, you know, seeing her up there and being a part of this. And look, man, it's always cool when you get to be a part of something that is an expansion and is a brand new sports franchise, professional sports franchise in your city. And I've never been to one. I'm not going to lie. I've never been to one of those. So,
well, there hasn't been one in how long?
Yeah, no. So check that off the list. I thought that was also cool to just kind of add to you know, to the old resume and just say, hey, I'm in a place where, you know, this team doesn't exist yet, and now we see all the logos and we see everything that goes along with it. And obviously women's basketball is going to be a huge cash cow around here, and the interest is up, and the fans are excited about it, and I'm excited to see it too.
I thought they did a really good job with it. And listen, Rock Entertainment doesn't screw these things up ever.
No.
They are best in class as far as this type of stuff goes. It like you and I have been in a lot of different arenas across the NBA. And like you can tell, to kind of bring this back to the Cavs a little bit, you can tell like who puts in a lot of effort into the pregame hype videos and the fan experience and stuff like that. And inside Rocket Arena, it's better than almost everywhere that I've been, if not everywhere I've been. And they brought that to the Cleveland Sirens. And I think that's a really good thing, because I do think that if you're going to do this, you've got to do it all the way. And I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever with this organization. I think that's a really good sign. Like if you are a fan of the WNBA, if you're a basketball fan in Cleveland, I think this is going to be a really good thing. One of the things that Grant Gilbert said that stood out to me is that this is going to be a big market team. They're going to treat this like a big market team. And in Cleveland, I think that we can be a little at times insecure with the small market tag, whether it's with the Cavs or the Cleveland Guardians. I don't necessarily know that it applies in football, especially with that ownership group where, I mean, they spend more money on bad players than any team in America at this point, maybe. But I think that was a really cool thing. I thought it was awesome that they did have former Rockers players there. Chastity Melvin, who is one of the hosts on the Locked On Cavs squad show that happens like once a week. Great to meet her. She was there. Obviously, she played for the team in the first iteration. It was great to meet her, catch up with her a little bit. And I'm sure we'll talk about that more on the next Locked On Cavs squad show that we do. But I just thought overall, like, it was a really, really good day. I thought, and I know this is a show about the Cavs. We're not going to do, I mean, when the team starts playing in 2028, we might talk more about it during the summer. This is not going to be like a regular part of the podcast, but I do think it was something that if you are a basketball fan in Cleveland, today was a really good day.
It was. I thought it was interesting too. Just like they made a really good point. The best time to be around here is from like May to September. And when does the NBA play?
Not January, man.
The WNBA plays during the summer. So they get the best time of year. And they're going to have the lake to use. They're going to, you're going to have to be able to, bring in all these teams, and they're going to see Cleveland for what it really is versus when it's buried under snow or it's -2 degrees. Like, that's a good point. Kobe was there and he was talking about that on the stage, and that's a great point. Like, you don't really think about those things, but they do. They get it at the best time of year, and they're gonna make over the the practice facility over there in Independence, and then the Cavs are gonna move into the Global Center there downtown in the Flats for their practice facility. So it's cool that they're gonna be partnering with each other, but they also are individualistic, and I think that's important when you want to not distance yourself, but when you want to act on your own.
You want to make a name. You want to have independence. You want to make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
You want to be known for being you. And I think that's one of the very cool things that Rock Entertainment decided to do with this franchise. That, yes, they're related to the Cavs, but they're different than the Cavs. And I think that was the right way to go about things. And I think that they did a really, really good job. So I'm happy that I got to be there for that. I know you share similar sentiments. Obviously, I thought it was a great day to be a basketball fan in Cleveland. I think it's a really cool thing. And I think it'll be a cool thing to watch it grow when uniforms come out at some point. I know that's a process that is going to be getting started in the very near future here. I think that'll be a cool thing to follow. Those would be cool to see. But overall, I just think a really good day for basketball in the state of Cleveland, Ohio. And if that's the case, I think that's a good day for everybody here on Locked On Cavs. So Spencer, as we get out of here, very much appreciate you taking the time to join. You can check him out over at ClutchPoints or just find him on Twitter. He tweets out everything he does. He does a lot of different stuff. I'm not going to list it all because we only have so much time in a podcast. So just go find him at Spin Davies on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Real D Cunningham. You can find this show anywhere you get your podcast. It's Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube as well. I'll be back tomorrow. Going to talk through some big names that could potentially get traded, and maybe the Cavs could get involved. So you don't want to miss that. You can find this show again, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, notification bell on YouTube, and I will talk to you tomorrow.